up on the screen. All right, so thanks for everybody actually sticking around. I know Sunday is kind of late, and I appreciate all of you showing up. My name is Branden Miller. My discussion here is building a pad that will survive the end times, so it's prepping. I have about 20 years of IT/information security experience, and I actually started the old burnout death spiral about 6 years ago, shortly after I started doing malware reverse engineering. I just lost all sanity and switched over to do management and policy. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 6 years. So anytime that I get to talk about something that's near and dear to most of our hearts, which is guns and prepping and things of that nature, makes me feel good about myself, and then it keeps me going for another year or so. So who am I? Well, I started telling you a little bit. I'm a husband, right? Father of 3, and this is one of the reasons why I kind of got into prepping. I've always considered myself a prepper. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas, so we lived through 7 hurricanes before the age of 18, and those were direct hit type hurricanes. So we'd always prep just for 3, 4, 5 days. That was usually the limit. With the introduction of my wife and my in-laws, we're now prepping for a year. That's our goal. 20-year Navy vet, retired last year. So some of the things that I've learned just from being a typical sailor actually come into practice whenever you're prepping. So I'm a constitutionalist. I believe heavily in the Second Amendment. You cannot have a First Amendment, which I wish the press would understand, without the Second Amendment. Because whenever our guns go, the first thing the government does is take away your liberties and your speech rights. So, unfortunately, them being liberals, they don't understand that. I'm also a pessimist, which kind of leads to why I prep, right? So to me, the cup's always half empty. This is what people typically see whenever they hear the term prepper, right? Especially with the new show Doomsday Preppers. Has anybody seen that? It's just like the news. They always pick the most sensational people to follow because that's what's going to sell ad space. You will pick up a lot of good information from that show, though. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, the grocery shelves are empty. You're only 9 meals away from anarchy. That's the principle of prepping for the end of the world. What is a prepper? Obviously, here's the definition. You always have to define something before you can talk about it. But basically, how many people have jumper cables in their car? You meet the definition of a prepper. I mean, that's what it is. It's simply taking measures or steps to ensure that if something bad happens, you're prepared for it. So everybody in this room is a prepper. You may not be going to the extent that my family goes to, but that's okay. Just realize you're all preppers. Stop making fun of me. So, really? I mean, is anything bad going to happen? Well, who remembers, we called him Breadhead, or some people called him Bagel Guy. He had the Arab Spring beginning of this year. And this guy seemed to be on every major newspaper, right? Cover page. And the whole concept behind this is, in Egypt, most people eat grains as their main staple. The price of grains skyrocketed 300% over the course of 12 hours, 1,200% over the course of a month. So these guys began a little revolt. Now, there were other reasons for the revolt, but that's how they got the lower class people to step up to the game, was by pointing and playing on the fact that they can't afford to eat. Now, in our country, we have two sides of our government, right? They're diametrically opposed. These guys aren't going to get in collusion and do something that's going to be detrimental to our people, right? They're not going to get together through inactivity and become sheeple themselves, right? Well, let's talk about gas prices and how an ineffective two-party system can drive up the price of gas. Now, I'll tell you right now, I think Obama is the devil. But it's not Obama's fault that we're in the problem that we're in right now. Our Congress is the fault for the problems we're having now. they're the ones that by the Constitution, they have two requirements. Number one, to sign and ratify any treaty with international countries. Number two, to pass a budget. Read the Constitution, that's their job. All this other crap that they're doing, all the bickering, that's not their job, okay? So if you have sustained gas prices, what comes next? Well, that's going to drive the price of all goods and services up. You can't move something in this country. You know, CSX always talks about, we move trains on 1 gallon of petrol. Whatever. 99% of our products move on trucks. Sustained gas prices, especially diesel, which, by the way, is a cleaner fuel nowadays with most cars, right? Look at the Volkswagen, 50-plus miles per gallon on diesel. Emissions are 0. Come on, people, get with it. It's not like they're going to screw up our economy to the point where we're going to have those riots. That's never going to happen, right? Occupy Wall Street. It's not like we're going to have some end times plague that's going to jump from some type of host into the human race. I mean, there's no such thing as swine flu. There's no such thing as the bird flu. That's not going to happen. Who saw the presentation on Friday about zombies? That was a good presentation, wasn't it? Kind of hits home. Because everybody thinks about this kind of stuff creating zombies. We don't really think of our own governments. Weaponizing the Ebola virus. Making the Ebola virus able to transfer through the air instead of blood contact. That's a huge problem. But we're okay. We have a two-party system. Their whole purpose is to be at loggerheads and fix things. Right. So being that I'm from the kind of the academic side, I do work for a university, I always try to boil things back to a repeatable process. It's just what I do. It's how I work. American Prepper Networks is one of the people that I rely on heavily to get information from. They have kind of a 5-phase approach. It's just like the intelligence cycle. If you're in the intel world, it's got your different repeatable processes. And we're going to talk about each one of these with heavy reliance on phase number 3. That's the adapt, change through sharing, and then, of course, preparing. I have a lot of stuff on preparing. Phase 1, basically, you're just going to try to determine what's most likely going to happen. Something else you need to do is decide on how much disposable income you have. Because I'm sorry, if you have $100 a month of disposable income and you're trying to prep for the end of the world, it's probably not going to happen. But if you're trying to prep for the next natural disaster, absolutely, go for it. And I'll tell you, prepping for the next natural disaster is a good start for prepping for the end of the world. It's not like you're going to waste information or waste money or waste energy prepping for 5 days, because that's going to just carry on to a 1-year scenario. And I'll show you a little bit of that. Phase 2 is basically building a learning network. Everybody in this room raise their hand. You're now all part of a learning network. We all have something. Yes, Adrian, even you, even though your cameras won't work at the end of the end times. Phase 3, this is the fun part, prepare and practice. Lots of practice, especially whenever it comes to the shooting range. My father-in-law has been reloading for probably about 20 years. My wife has been reloading for about 5 years. Really gotten back into reloading in the last 6 months. Even my sister-in-law reloads. I couldn't tell you the difference between 119 grain and whatever else they have in the boxes that I buy. So I just supply checks. That's my job. My wife does all the heavy lifting. Number 4, or phase 4, become an expert. You don't have to be an expert in everything, because phase 5 is basically teach others and start learning something new. All right? Simple enough. So let's talk about phase 1. Decide what's most likely going to happen. Step 1, you can determine what's most likely going to happen. For us, it's a global economic collapse. If you don't have the money to prepare for a global economic collapse, start small. We just happen to have enough money that we put some small country's GDP to shame, so we're going big. And I'll show you how big a little bit later. Global destabilization of economies, like I said, that's what we're preparing for. It's going to start with this. I already talked about high gas prices. how that affects the movement of goods throughout our country, how that affects services. If you have empty shelves, the next step is going to be riots. They may be peaceful at the beginning, but you're going to have some type of demonstration. Look at Greece. Greece demonstrates every time they want to change a light bulb, right? I've got to change a light bulb. I don't have enough money to change this light bulb. Let me get my buddies. We're gonna revolt. All right? And of course they'll blame Germany for everything, which I'm okay with. In my idea, my way of thinking, after you have mass scale demonstrations, that's going to overwhelm the police force and the local economies. Don't forget, if gas prices go up, point in case, last year, my buddy's a state trooper, they were limited to the number of miles they could drive. Now, our state troopers in Kentucky are responsible for no less than 3 counties. That's a minimum. So if you have a call 2 counties over, you have to document how far you went, and that comes off your gas rationing. So at the end of each month, they were having to rely more heavily on the local sheriff's departments, who, by the way, got less money than the state troopers. They had to do fuel restrictions. So keep that in mind. Does anybody know what posse comitatus is? Our lawyers? What's posse comitatus? Close. So posse comitatus actually means that our federal troops, by law, cannot act as a police force. Look at our wonderful laws since 9/11. Posse comitatus can be suspended now, not with the permission of Congress, but from an executive order. So you want to talk about Constitution getting out of hand? Nowhere in the Constitution does it allow the president to suspend anything in the Constitution, but our recent laws are going that way. It always sounds like a good idea. So I think that because local law enforcement will not be able to step up to the plate, that posse comitatus will be suspended, and then our U.S. military will become the police force. Hopefully, there will be mass exodus of military members. But as long as you continue to pay someone, you're always going to have a henchman. Once again, I did 20 years in the military. I can tell you, I was one of the few people that have even read the Constitution and were serving in uniform. Whenever I had my retirement ceremony, I handed out little pocket constitutions to everybody that showed up, and it was honestly the first time anybody had had the Constitution in their hand, other than my wife and my in-laws. It's pretty scary. There were teachers in the crowd. One of my friends teaches Texas history. He had never taught his kids about the U.S. Constitution. It's not his job, he said. That's the U.S. history teacher's job. I think that's sad. So, because our resources are going to be stretched, our U.S. government, our local governments will not be able to reach people after natural disasters. They will not be able to help people once the mobs start rioting and looting. This is just going to be a never-ending cycle. We will probably become a police state. If you want to go back in history, it's not hard to find civilizations that once ruled their worlds that actually ended up being police states and then just collapsed. So Greece, the Peloponnesians, Romans, look at any of the major groups or geopopulations. It all ends with the same cycle. So let's talk about currency. A lot of people, especially the naysayers nowadays, the people that say, the end of the world is nigh, they'll tell you to go out and buy gold, silver, and other precious metals. Now, historically speaking, that's a good idea if if that crisis lasts for a limited period of time. In actuality, if you have a long-term crisis and you have a choice between shelter or carrying around a bunch of heavy-ass gold, what's going to be your choice? You hear Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Shelter's important, and it's at the bottom. Food, shelter, water. You're in survival mode. couldn't care or give a rat's ass about gold, right? You want somebody that can build a shelter for you. You're going to have to trade a service. So I always say new markets and commodities result from long-term calamity. That's a true statement. And then you need skills. You need to be able to build something. Become a repairer. Become a builder. Offer a service. You'd be surprised at the number of prostitutes we're going to have. Take a look at civilizations throughout the world. Prostitution and alcoholism skyrockets during time of long-term crisis. Why? Because people give up. So if you have a skill, even if it's a prostitute, hey, you may stop taking gold, but you won't stop taking food, right? So any questions so far? Sound like I'm harebrained yet? Hair's on fire? Okay, good. There's a lot of people, sometimes whenever I give this, especially to work colleagues, they're just like, dude, you're smoking crack. I'm like, sweet, don't come to my house. So phase 2, just like anything else, you're going to want to build a network, a learning network. This is an excellent website, the American Preppers Network. You can find the answers to just about any question you have on this. They have videos, they have white papers, they have just about anything you want. The people that advertise on their site are all vetted. So if an advertiser or a salesperson screws someone over, they drop them off the site. They're heavy into reputation. So I'm not saying, trust everyone, but they're pretty good. At least they have a vetting system. Magazines and books, the Prepper's Workbook down here. If you're like me and you've taken several personality tests, and one of the things that always comes out is I'm judgmental, meaning I like checklists. It's black or white. I put a check in the box or I don't. You would think I would have been an auditor instead of InfoSec, right? But anyway, they have checklists. So you can say, I want to prep for a hurricane. You flip to the section on hurricanes, and they have a checklist. That's excellent. If you say, I live in the north, I want to prepare for the next blizzard, they have a checklist. It's really good. Here's some of the magazines that we subscribe to. They're all free, actually. The HQ Military Surplus is a pretty good one. You can get a lot of things, especially if you're into reloading, very cheap from the HQ Military Surplus. The Major Surplus and Survival Guide is really good. Every once in a while, they'll throw an article in there talking about survival, but it's usually survival gear. And then you can pick up things like the SAS Urban Survival Handbook. One of the things I always tell people when the world goes to crap, if you have food and if you have ammo, first place you should go is the public library. And the reason is, if you don't have these books, they do. So that's the first place you should raid, public library. Now, obviously, if you don't have food or ammo, then you need to get food or ammo. But, if you're already pretty well set, go build your library. It's never too late to start. Not until you're in the bowl and they're pouring in water to make soup. That's when it's too late. TV, once again, Doomsday Preppers. They always seem to get the... Has anybody watched this show? Did you see the girl that had like 1,000 condoms? And she's like, this might last me and my boyfriend a month, but I'll have to, he'll have to wean me off of this because I may have to use my body to get us food in the end. So, yeah, they always have the good people. This particular episode, the reason why I put a picture on here, go look at this one. The dude blows his thumb off. So they're shooting 22s. He's teaching his sons how to shoot and do some tactical combat maneuvers, things of that nature. Blows his thumb off, completely passes out. First time I've ever seen in a documentary where the cameraman drops the camera and goes to render aid. Normally they're those, non-participative observers, right? They've got the camera, they're trying to be objective. Yeah, so this dude had a really bad day. Whenever he comes to, they take him to the hospital, and they're like 30 miles out in the middle of nowhere in Texas or Arizona, one of those states, I don't remember. But the point is later on they interview him, kind of like a follow-up, and he said the one thing that he realized they never thought about was teaching his kids first aid. So he enrolled everybody in a first aid course. So always learn from your mistakes. That's my point. And of course, there's an app for that. You can find such things like the U.S. Army Survival Guide. It's free. It's on all platforms. I don't know about Windows phones, because I don't like Windows phones. I had one in my hand once for like 5 minutes and just didn't feel right. So but the cool thing about this is, hey, say you're commuting, you're on the train, just read chapter 1. On the way home, read chapter 2. Read it over and over until you know it back and forth. Put it in practice. See what happens. It's pretty cool. You'll learn really cool things like how to build a proper fire, how to build a temp fire, how to build an emergency fire, those kind of things. How to lay out firing positions. So that's all in there. And most survival guides, CBRN survival guides for the U.S. military, there's an app for it. If not, you can get the PDF for free. So keep that in mind. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of things to build your network or to start prepping. So once again, raise your hand if you're a prepper, or you meet the definition of prepper. You have, yeah, everybody's a prepper. I've already established that, right? If you have jumper cables in your car, you're a prepper. All right, now comes the fun part, the preparation and practice, phase 3. This is where this talk almost didn't happen. I spoke to Rob previously, and whenever I showed this to my father-in-law, he wasn't happy. So I did have to make a lot of changes. So I took special care in making sure that you would not be able to find our primary and alternate location, things of that nature. The information he's okay with. He believes heavily in learning from others. But if you used, like, say, ArcGIS programs, I got some of my maps from GIS information, and you could have probably reverse engineered it and found out our location. But it doesn't matter, because the power is going to go up by the time you remember this, so you're screwed. All right, so locations, locations, locations. And the reason why I wrote it this way is you never want to just have a primary location and leave it at that. We actually have several locations. We have, in my extended family, we have 12 people scattered over 6 places. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but some of them are 80 miles away. So we have to be able to find, our location and be able to navigate there. In this particular picture, what you'll see is a farm. It's the first farm that we bought. And there's a farmhouse and there's a barn. And there's a lot of good arable land. The problem is, if you know anything about how to read topo maps, we're in a valley. When you're talking defensible positions, you want the high ground. Low ground sucks. And in this case, how many can read a topo map? What does it mean when the lines are really close together? Very steep. That happens to be very steep down. So our farm is at the bottom of a 200-foot drop, basically. That's not good all the way around. But the purpose of this farm was, it was a really good deal. It was a foreclosure. We wanted someplace for my kids to play, and we wanted a place to set up a firing range. And if you'll notice, the well-manicured spots at the bottom, parallel lines, that's our rifle range. And because there's a 200-foot, basically, sheer cliff face behind it, we don't have to worry about shooting over our targets and stuff like that. So we have a tactical handgun range. My father-in-law actually teaches concealed carry classes, and he'll do the state minimum, okay, hit the target so many times, you're good to go. And then he lets people play if they choose to and they sign the agreement that they won't sue his ass. So once again, topo shows that even though we have water, we have arable land, not a good defensive position. So this is the second farm that we've purchased. On this, we have our own pond. We don't have a dry creek in the summer. We actually have a full-on river now, so that's nice. Fairly fast-moving water, so the water is going to stay clean. That's important whenever you're talking about gathering food and water. Now, with that said, we don't trust water in nature, because everyone seems to pee in it or poop in it or push their pig crap in it. So we actually have mechanisms to clean our water. We also have a farmhouse. We have a new barn, which isn't on this map, and then we have a smaller, what we call an outcropping. It's a cabin, basically. We have our own power generation, and that will last for short period of time. What you'll notice from this map, the topo map, is it's exactly opposite of our first farm. We are on the ridge. We are the ridge. There are sheer cliffs almost all the way around us. There's really one entryway and one exit, so that makes it easily defensible, which is nice. This is our new barn. The Amish built this barn. I'll tell you what, the Amish build wonderful structures. They build them fast, and they're pretty cheap. It's really nice, and they love it. Makes them feel good to have something built by the end of the day. It's great. So this is our barn. We'll explore the barn a little bit here in a minute. This is our gainey fowl pen right here, which actually looks just like the barn. Love the Amish. And then that's our cabin. What I don't show is the actual house itself, but we'll explore some of the other buildings here in just a second. Let's talk about defenses. I've already gone over natural topology and how that's important. If you are limited in resources, defensive resources, topology is your number one friend. So keep that in mind. Tree stands. I'll show you a picture. We have 8 tree stands in the barn, and those aren't the ones that my father-in-law is using for hunting. He has about 6 or 7 more that's in place right now, permanent, and the other ones are what we call our flyaway stands. Everything we buy, we try to make sure it has a dual purpose, so just keep that in mind. That's how you save your dollars in the end. Foxholes, we have, I don't really call them foxholes. We'll just say that they're fighting emplacements throughout, using natural cover and natural barriers. Steel traps, a trapping license in Kentucky is like $15 or something like that. So just buy big ones, and you can trap people whenever the world goes to crap. And then cameras, we have cameras all over the place, some solar powered, some battery powered. You can pick up a good camera on eBay for about $100, the solar powered one. Retail, they're about $150 sometimes. Just keep that in mind. Here's the inside of our barn, some of our heavy equipment, obviously our tree stands. We have a couple of different types of tree stands, small portable ones, permanent style. So keep that in mind. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so always try to vary what you're going to use. And then, of course, guns, and more guns. My role in this whole scenario became clear this year. This is the new Glock 19 Gen 4. So they've been out not very long now. Everyone in the family except for myself has one. So that's like everyone, even the people that don't shoot. So I figure my role is really to get my family down to our location, either the primary or secondary location, and I'm pretty much expendable from that point. I'm like the red shirt in Star Trek, right? I mean, I know my place. This is what I passionately call our wall of guns. Kind of hard to see down there. But the point of this is like our, we need guns really fast wall. The safe is, if they're stupid enough to still come at us, then we pull out the good stuff. But we have everything down there from BB guns and pellet guns at the bottom to old style shotguns to Remington rifles. And the point of that is ammunition is going to be limited. You can buy 50,000 BBs and hunt squirrel for your food for the same price it's going to cost you for, a box of 59 millimeter ammo, which is pretty cheap, right? Or 122 bullets, which is pretty cheap. So keep that in mind. You don't have to go out and buy, brand new rifles, hunting rifles, safari grade. Yes, Bill. Yes.
Some people learn it's easier to buy steel traps for capturing animals than hunting them. Is that one of the things you want there?
So, yes, we have steel traps for hunting. And I'll be honest with you, that's one of the things I lack. I hunt by luck, and I hunt by feeding. So we do have fields of clover, and we do have lots of grain. Whenever it comes down to it, if times are hard, we're going to eat the grain. My father-in-law, who's an avid hunter and has been for years, he's actually a primitive hunter. So he's the kind of guy that makes his own bow and arrows and goes out and deer hunts, that kind of thing. So, I don't know. I'm a big proponent of big guns. He's a big proponent of living off the land. he will probably live longer than I will. Plus, he's skinnier than me, and I consume a lot of resources. But yeah, if you become a good trapper, it is a cheap alternative. That U.S. Army Survival Guide shows you how to make traps. And you can make them with the paracord that you stole from, the next room over. So keep that in mind. Good question. This is kind of like the standard loadout. This is my brother-in-law. Interestingly enough, my wife's grandmother died a couple of years ago, and her grandfather decided he was going to, it's been long enough, I'm going to start dating this girl I remember from high school. And she's from Ohio. He invited the whole family down to the last family reunion. We found out they hate guns, so we all decked out like this. So they stayed about 30 minutes and drove all the way back to Ohio. Yes, sir? Is he standing on a scale? No, that's the driveway. Yeah, no, they did that so that it theoretically wouldn't crack. Gives it room to expand. Yeah.
There's not a crack right behind them.
Yeah, that is a crack right, but that's why I said theoretically.
I just want to add in the
Yeah, theoretically, it gives it room to expand. So once again, typical rig, 2 sidearms on the hip with a holster for under a jacket kind of thing. Some people call them tuxedo holsters. So let's talk about traveling. Yes, Bill.
As far as tactical vests, would you all invest in those? Do you see like that to be something the prepper should have?
Yes, absolutely. If you can afford tactical, the problem with tactical vests is I can buy 8 holsters for the price of a good tactical vest with its components. But yes, hey, I'll take my 8 holsters, the money that I saved, put it into ammo, and then take your tactical vest. So there's different ways of getting resources. But yes, tactical vests are very good, and they make you feel kind of cool.
Well, they also have the drag straps on the back, so if you
Yep.
drag somebody out.
Yeah, drag straps and all that good. Makes it really helpful to 2-man carry. Depending on who in the family gets hurt, they may be walking their own ass out. So, yeah. Well, remember, I consume a lot of resources. And I'm a pansy, so I don't like to work. So bug in, bug out. Bug in, the U.S. government calls it shelter in place. That's a key term, because if you look up shelter in place, FEMA is an excellent source for prepping. They're just normally prepping for a couple of days. And then bug out, that means, get to stepping. Let's get out of here. This is an example of a FEMA checklist for shelter in place. This is prepping for a hurricane. And once again, good free resource. That'll get you well on your way to prepping. I could not get a good picture of my wife's bug out bag, but basically we use this from uncrate.com to design our own. You can buy this kit with the exception of the firearms and the medicine. You can buy it as is. So if you have the money, buy it. We built our own. Osprey pack, I don't know if you ever heard of Osprey backpacks. They're excellent. And they have a backpack that will fit any frame. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm fat, my wife is not. We both have Osprey packs and love them. But everything that you see here is something that we do have in our bug out bag. Maybe not in the bag, but I'll show you some of the Go containers that we have a little bit later. We have Pelican Go boxes, as well as just cheap Go boxes. Travel modes. So for modern travel, we have a couple of 4-wheel drive vehicles. Once again, because we're in a remote farms out in the middle of Kentucky. We have 4 different motorcycles. 3 of the 4 are cruisers, so don't handle so well out in the farmland, but that's okay. Of course, we have the People Mover. It's my wife's van. My Nissan Versa, just because I love that damn car, and it's going with me. At the end of the world, my Versa is going with me. I love that car. And then we have this trailer, which is our bug-out trailer, repurposed. It used to fit all the motorcycles in it. And then for old school, on that first farm, which is where we intend to meet and then travel to the second farm, we do have a horse and a donkey, and of course, their offspring, the mule. So if you put a horse and donkey together, it's interesting. And then we do have a utility wagon. The style, you can get them at Harbor Freight for like $100. A lot of times they go on sale for $69. Just repurpose that. Food and water. So this is what's for dinner. I'll give you a close-up. This is the 1 month pack. It's from Augustin Farms. It's pretty good. They claim that it will sustain 5 people for 1 month, and it's about $50, so that's not bad. We always put a date on it, because at some point you're going to have to eat this before it expires if the world doesn't go to crap. So put a date on all your stuff. Yes, Bill?
Will you link all this? Because these have been shipped.
Yeah.
I was looking for this stuff that was way more expensive than what I was looking at.
Yeah, so what I'm going to follow up with, and I didn't think about this until I was driving here, because I was thinking about me, not really you guys, and the per diem I was going to make. I'm going to have to follow this up with our list of where we buy some of our things, how much you should expect to pay for them, and then what the market rate is, so you know how to negotiate. So yeah, that's a good question. I'll probably have that out in a month or so. My blog is infosecdelta@blogspot.com, and I'll have that list up there. I'll give a copy to Adrian, so maybe he can put it on irongeeks.com or link it to my website,
Yeah,
which
just let me know.
never,
I can link the video page
Yeah.
for your video to get.
because my site never gets hit. Of course, I've had it for a year, and I've only written 4 articles, so, and most of them are for White Rabbit, because I don't respect him anymore. So anytime he speaks, I write something. Some more things, daily bread. Daily bread is a little bit more expensive, but we picked up this entire stack of daily bread, which will feed us, according to them, for 3 months at a prepper convention in in Dallas, that just happened to be there the same time that Glenn Beck was there. Go figure. And this whole kit, and plus some of the buckets I'll show you, they threw in the buckets for free, was like $400, and that's 3 months of food. I can't shop for that. I've got 3 kids and a wife. We spend $250 every 2 weeks, right? And that's because my wife, we have a garden. I'll show you that a little bit later. Make sure you want to stock up on pantry items. So once again, we're talking about bugging in. You're going to stay in. These buckets are really cool, and I have a close-up of one of the buckets. Okay, a couple here. So go back to the buckets. So these buckets are really cool. What they do is they have a locking mechanism. All it is it's just 2 overhangs, really. But the important part is the round top actually has a gasket between them. So whenever you put that lid on top, you have to beat it with a hammer, and it crushes that gasket down. And then the very top on the inside is a screw top, and it's got a 4-pronged handles so that you can really torque it down, and that's got a gasket also. So whenever you close this, it really is airtight. Now you're going to trap some air in it, but that's okay. What you don't want is the exchange of air. That's where things start decaying. Here's some of our standard water bug out. We have an ice maker. My mother-in-law wants to bring ice for some reason, but whatever. Okay, so we have an ice bucket. Okay, we'll give her one. And then, of course, we have a little utility bug out container at the bottom. Here's a little close-up shot of that bucket. I did this for the picture. It kind of pissed off my mother-in-law because all the colors are off. She wanted the green to be on green, but it didn't look good, so I wanted to be able to show it to you guys. She's mad. But anyway, standard white bucket. That green lid is the part that has the gasket in it, and you really have to beat it down so that it locks in place. I tried to get the green lid off, and it will not come off without destroying the bucket. It is on there. And then the yellow top is that spin top that I was talking about, so you can really torque it down, and it crushes a second gasket. This is our gardening test. It's funny, we have 2 farms but no farmers. Yeah, so my wife and I decided let's start growing something. So unfortunately, being our first time, we've grown something without killing it, including a cactus that I once bought her. She killed it. We started out with 8 tomato plants. Tomato plants get big. So we now have 3 tomato plants. They make a crap ton of tomatoes. So this is our experiment. Some other things we're experimenting with. These are our narcoleptic goats. And yes, they really are narcoleptic. I did just say that. So everything, once again, dual purpose. You can get milk from them. You can eat them at the end of their life and their entertainment because you just walk up beside them and go, blah, and they really go, fall over. And then they start kind of getting moving. They stand up and walk away. So you can get a narcoleptic goat for about $150 to $200, depending on which crazy lady you go see. We use this lady we call the Goat Lady out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And wow, the 60s were not good to her. So, but she has a lot of goats, and they're cheap. This is our guinea fowl. The good thing about them, and the reason why we picked them, is they love ticks. Kentucky has a huge tick problem, right? We let these guys go. My mother-in-law trained these guys daily for about 2 months. She would just walk out there, take grub worms, which these things love. You know, you've got corn or grub worms. Grub worms, yeah, they're good. She would just go, hooty-hoo, throw the grub worms down. After 2 months of this, she let the gate open, let them wander around, screamed out, hooty-hoo, started walking over there with the grub worms in her hand, and they came from every neck of the woods. So now they're trained. If we want to bug out with these guys, we can bug out with these guys. They'll go in the trailer. You just scream out hooty-hoo, throw the grub worms down. They're in the trailer. It's great. Of course, we had a pond, so the kids wanted ducks. Hey, eggs, meat. We're not going to worry about training them. These are really cool. I don't know where my father-in-law found these. I'm going to have to get more information about them. They hold several hundred gallons of water, and he paid $125 for these things. Granted, he did buy 8 of them, so he bought them in bulk. But the point is obviously we have a tractor there. We can put these anywhere we want. We have some out in the woods. They're hidden. We do recycle the water, so we've got little groves that we'll plant clover in for deer, and we'll use these to water them. It's really nice. Sustained water. This is a cistern. I am not a country guy. I didn't know what a cistern was, and whenever they opened this to show me, there's no way in heck I'm drinking that water. But we do have a water purification system now, so I will. Basically, it's a gravity-fed cavern is all it is. Rainwater, runoff water, all goes in there, captures it. Right now, I pretty much use it to flush the toilet in the cabin. That's about it. This will be our drying facility, our meat smoking or meat drying facility. Jerky's good. Jerky's a very good survival food. High in protein, low in fat if you use the right meat. It was a full-on smoker, and my father-in-law went in there one day after the kids had been playing and found a couple of copperheads. So the way he thinks, destroy bad things, he got rid of it, and we're rebuilding it. Practice, practice, practice. Let's talk about the fun stuff. So once again, father-in-law is huge in tactical shooting. He's actually paid to receive training from former Mossad agents on hand-to-hand combat, tactical shooting, things like that. And he picked up these videos. We all watch the videos. We all get to go out and farm and play. These are just the good ones. I only took a picture of 4 of them. There's a whole series. Some of the other ones are kind of okay. This is defensive firearm use in public. Hey, you may not need to worry about it at the end of the world, but I do carry now, so that's a good one. Extremely close quarter shooting. Very good video. Teaches you about things about separation, closure rate. If someone has a knife, don't go for your gun, you're going to die, that kind of thing. Combat focus shooting. This is based off the Israeli Mossad's cone shooting theory. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. You remember whenever that Mossad agent shot multiple people in the airport in LAX about 8 years ago? But all those multiple people were known terrorists. So in LAX with several thousand people, a Mossad agent fired 8 rounds, striking 5 people, I think it was, and only those 5 people. So that's impressive. We went out and got the video. And then advanced pistol handling. This is all about draw and pulling. Different, there's completely different ideology from drawing from an ankle holster than there is a hip holster. This is an old book, but it's still a very good book. It's the NRA's Guide to Basic Defense in Your Home. You'll see like the old school, a lot of mullets and stuff like that, but that's okay because the information's good. They'll teach you about secondary locks on your doors. They'll teach you about bolting your doors. They'll teach you about fighting defensive positions, using beds and dressers, and how you should align your furniture so that you can, have a clear shooting down a hallway kind of thing. Interesting side story, my wife and I have been married for about 4 months. We moved to Maryland, and we were checking out. We had like 5 houses on the list, military housing. We go into the first one. I'm on the first floor. She goes up to the second floor, and she's, nowhere to be found. I'm like, where'd my wife go? It's been like 30 minutes. So I go upstairs. As soon as I get to the hallway, I look in the master bedroom, and she's crouched down. And she looks up, and she goes, we're going to take this house, and the dresser goes here. I was like, why? Should have a clear firing lane. I can protect the children in the room. I can protect us in the bedroom. We're taking this house. I was like, holy crap, who are you? What have I married into? And of course, we believe everyone should practice. So this is actually my 6-year-old son. He's got his first BB gun this year. So, and yes, we are practicing in the neighborhood. Someday I'll get a back fence and my neighbor will stop yelling at me. Because right now we just have that little construction barrier because they're still doing construction. But he'll get over it. And this is my 12-year-old daughter. Her favorite is spinnerbait, but she actually is really good at primitive fishing. So you give her like sinew, however you want to call it, from a deer. She can make line. She can make her own hooks. She can catch fish. That's pretty cool. I'm proud. I can't do it, I'll be honest with you. So any questions about phase 3? Practice, 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 fun, 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 and spending a lot of money. All right. So phase 4, become the expert. So the whole point of this is I want you to be this guy, right? If all my family's dead and I have a choice of all you guys and this guy, I'm sorry. I don't know any of you, but just on presentation alone, Dave Kennedy yesterday, I'll probably pick this guy. Right? Of course, he's probably going to just keep me along because I'm fat and I provide more sustenance for him later on down the road.
That's why you should have chose Dave.
And that's what, but yeah, I know. Well, Dave's not in the room right now. And it's nothing on you guys, but, be that guy. Or even be this guy. He's got a couple of modern conveniences in the back, but look, he's making his own clothing. That's an important skill. Remember earlier, gold's not going to do any good, silver's not going to do you any good. This guy could probably sustain himself through selling clothing and maybe protecting himself. You just don't want to be this guy, right? So that should be your goal in life. Be the first two. Don't be this guy, all right? You don't want to be the soup and the dude walk up to you and go, dinner guests are going to be here early. I need you to fold the napkins. That's just not good. And of course, phase 5, when I teach others, learn something new. That's why I'm here. Actually, I'm not. I'm here for the per diem, to be honest with you, and the free ticket. That's why I spoke. So what's next for us? Well, my wife we were just at the local library, because we go there about once a week. We homeschool, take our kids to the library. She has decided she wants to start canning and doing long-term food storage. The library had 22 books at our small local library on canning. Now, the Lexington system had over 50. So she got 22. And, yeah. What's that? And they haven't asked for them back yet. But we're going to expand the farm into a more working farm. Like I said, it kind of sucks that we have 2 farms and no farmers. So if our goal is to sustain ourselves for a year, we're short of that goal. So we need to build up our skill set. And then number 3, learn more skills. So there's always new shooting tactics you can learn. There's always new survival tactics you can learn. We kind of hit the immediate needs since we have a river close by. Let's learn about primitive fishing, that kind of thing. Reloading, it's just cheaper. It's cheaper to reload if you're not a shooter. And I thought that was counterintuitive. And then I realized the more you reload, the more you shoot. So it becomes cheaper per bullet, but you end up spending a lot more money. So, and that's pretty much it. Are there any more questions? I know Bill had a lot. I will follow this up with a list, kind of like a shopping list of where we buy, what we buy, how much you can expect to spend. So that way to better prepare you. Yes, sir. It's kind of funny. So infosecdelta.blogspot.com. And I had to think about it. That's why I paused there. I don't even monitor the site anymore because the hits were like 5, and that was me monitoring the site. But, oh yeah, I also go by Fozzie, but I'm not like under Twitter and Fozzie. I don't have an email account called Fozzie, but I've been called Fozzie for like 20 years. So maybe I will register that. Yes, follow-up question.
Have you ever incorporated like survival skills for people who live in like urban areas?
Oh yes, good question. Incorporating survival skills in urban areas. Very good question. One of the first things I'll tell you is it's the same process. Determine what it is that you think is going to happen. And then FEMA really has some good information. Especially, they put out a handbook for people in the Seattle area in case the volcano up there ever erupts again. And it is a shelter-in-place system. And it has a series of checklists and what you should do if, and some of the things you should learn. So that is an excellent resource. Once again, it's all free. Urban situations are completely different. You're more into the hunter-gatherer phase, not deer hunting, not gathering nuts and twigs like we'll be doing, but hunting for food, hunting for people so that you can take the resources. I mean, I hate to say that, and my wife always gets pissed whenever they bring it up. She's like, we're moral people, and I'm like, yep, until the world goes to crap. Then it's between me and God.
If you can find a local phone book, there's an entire first part of it's about shelter in place because we live in typical Valley. So shelter in place is something that's ingrained to our culture.
So Bill says on your way out of town, steal every local phone book you can get because it has shelter in place information.
Houses in this area back from the 60s with the bomb shelters.
Oh yeah, that's where they got the shelter in place term. Was you'll notice the bomb shelters all have a sign that says shelter in place. Yes, sir.
Like my cars, all of my cars have trailer hitches.
Yeah.
And like I have a Honda Civic and a Honda Accord, and people look at me, you really tow anything? Yeah. I tow a lot of things with it.
Oh, yeah.
You can rent a trailer for $15 a day. And you know.
Yeah. So what he was basically pointing out was the fact that he has a Honda Accord. Did you say?
I have a Civic and a Accord.
Honda Civic and a Honda Accord, and he has trailer hitches on them. People read manuals every once in a while, and they go, oh, my car manual says I can't tow anything. Get a tow hitch. And here's the reason. You can tow small trailers, and they're excellent for ramming people. So if you jack that hitch up, if you don't have a trailer, right, you can get the variable height hitches, flip that bad boy around, pick it up to where it's just above your bumper, and whenever someone in need, you're trying to run away, they're following you, that tow hitch is attached to your frame. Their bumper maybe is. The posts for their bumper are attached to the frame. The bumper's not. There's probably going to be plastic. If you can put that through the radiator, they'll stop following you. But yes, excellent point. Yeah. And I think that's kind of my time. I am available, and I do have business cards. So if you want for contact, prepping information. It's kind of funny, my in-laws make fun of me because I tell them I'm not a prepper, but actually know more about prepping than they do because, like I said, I've been doing it all my life. The reason why they prep is because Glenn Beck says it's a good idea. The reason why I prep is I want to protect my family. So, all right.